Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Seiben here for the Aether Hub, bringing you our first taste of MTG lore for Amonkhet. When we last left off, the Gatewatch had just liberated the plane of Kaladesh from the machinations of Tezzeret, destroying the planar bridge he was conscripted to build by his master, the Dragon Nicol Bolas. While most of the Gatewatch agreed that Bolas is the true threat, there isn't a consensus on how to deal with this ancient planeswalker and his unknown schemes. Ajani Goldmane, the newest member of the Gatewatch who actually battled Bolas in the past, urges caution, while the rest of the group believe their best hope is to attack as soon as possible to catch the dragon off guard. Liliana knows Bolas is on Amonkhet, and despite Ajani's dire warning, she, along with Gideon, Jace, Nissa, and Chandra, run off to this hostile world, while the Leonin goes to Dominaria to find more allies. And so the Gatewatch, deceiving their newest member, run blindly to Bolas' world and meet a most ungracious greeting. They first encounter probably their most hostile opponent on Amonkhet, the plane itself. With two suns rising steadily across the horizon and little around them in terms of cover, the Gatewatch begin to blister in the sweltering temperatures, save for Chandra, of course. Harsh winds kick up sand and launch into the planeswalkers like the sting of a swarm of bees, but the sands of Amonkhet are seemingly endless. Disoriented from their journey across the blind eternities, it's hard for any of them to get a handle on their situation. Luckily, Chandra knows what intense flames can do to sand. Like a master glass shaper from Kaladesh, the Pyromancer focuses her white-hot flame at their most abundant resource, creating an almost clear igloo for them to take shelter in. With this brief respite, the Gatewatch can finally plan their next move. Jace, using his mind magic, tries to reach out to the thoughts of anyone, anything nearby, but he's met with only silence. Nissa attempts to reach into the mana ley lines of Amonkhet, but they're weak, almost dying. She equates them to the pulse of a dying animal, as if the world itself was either dying or already dead. Liliana, who originally said Bolas could have created Amonkhet before the mending, then says he could have killed this world to make it his own, but its origins weren't gonna help them find the dragon himself. Then Chandra pointed out what should have been pretty apparent to all as soon as they got there, assuring everyone that they were indeed on the right plane and even pointing them in the direction they should travel to. The hint? A pair of gigantic horns sticking well above the horizon, a monument to Bolas himself. Yeah, that's probably a good place to start. As soon as the storm dies, they'll begin their journey. As the winds finally cease their churning and the sand settles, the Gatewatch step from the safety of their makeshift dome and head towards the horns, but the sands beneath their feet begin to shift. Seems another type of storm is stirring just below them. Rotting hands, sporting tattered cloth, reach up from the uneven ground, grasping and clawing at Jace, who frantically attempts to kick free from their clutches. Zombies, the undead, here on Amonkhet. Gideon quickly lifts Jace from being dragged down below, but they're far from safe. They claw their way out of the sand, and suddenly, the Gatewatch is surrounded by an ever-growing sea of mummified opponents. Liliana casts an aura of decay around her, causing what flesh these zombies did have to wither away before they could even touch her. Chandra mows down scores of the monsters with her fire, barely dropping even a bead of sweat between her heat and the two suns above her. With the ley lines weak, Nissa can't cast the animus spell she usually relies on, so she pulls a sword from her staff and begins to cut down those who wander out of Chandra's field of destruction. Gideon, using his blade-tipped Surl, whips down any undead who venture in range, cutting through their rotting limbs with ease. But Jace, being a mind mage, finds himself at a stark disadvantage fighting things with no mind. He's a liability in this battle. Rather than become a distraction for his friends, Jace shrouds himself in an invisibility spell and scouts the fight from a dune above them. He may not be much help now, but he can plan and organize the conflict and an escape if need be. Being a skilled necromancer herself, Liliana's giddy at the prospect of controlling so many willing dead. But a spell like that would push her well beyond her own means. She'd have to tap into the Chain Veil. But there wasn't a need for that. She has friends now, allies, those who would with some manipulation work on her self-interest. She didn't have to rely solely on the Veil anymore. With a weaker spell, Liliana turns a squad of these living mummies to the Gatewatch's side, having them fight tooth and whip with Gideon. Gideon, having fought with Liliana's zombies on Innistrad, was getting used to the idea of fighting alongside an army of dead soldiers. They always seemed to obey orders. Yet, even so, the Desert Dead continued to swarm them. They'd be overrun if she didn't do something more. So, she sent out a more simple command over a vastly larger number of zombies. Flee! With those words, the dead seemed to ignore the presence of the Gatewatch and turn to run in any direction away from them. Those out of reach of the command would then slowly be picked off by Chandra, Nissa, and Gideon. Yet, on a world like Amonkhet, it seems when one hostile force ends, another turns its ugly head, as the sands again begin to quake. A humongous sandworm opens its maw and swallows the previously cocky Liliana Vess. The others watch on in horror as their least trusting ally is taken whole. Gideon leads the charge, cool and collected as always. His first instinct is to order the team to attack. Nissa is more concerned of their lost friends. The zombies, once under her control, again turn on them. That wasn't a good sign. The undead pounce on Gideon, who was clearly focused on the worm, and although his protective barrier kept them from harming him, the sheer number of corpses managed to pin him to the sand. Nissa's keen sense of life told her that this wasn't the only worm. It seems they hunt in small packs on this plane. More were coming. They needed Gideon. She commands Chandra to take out the one visible as the elf, sword in hand, starts to slash away at the dead now covering Gideon. Setting him free was one small victory, but 4 worms now slithered their way, with 2 more coming from opposite directions. 6 massive sandworms versus the 4 remaining planeswalkers. Chandra manages to torch a worm to a blackened crisp. I guess after 2 Eldrazi Titans, 1 sandworm wasn't much of a challenge. Yet that wasn't the end of this. Another seemingly catches her off guard and almost swallows her whole, but Jace comes to the rescue. Enveloping her in his invisibility, he forms an illusion of a giant scorpion which pulls the worm's attention and sends it chasing after the false prey. They may not have much in terms of thoughts, but Jace could at least manage to decipher that scorpions were their favorite food. Another worm raced towards their direction but stopped short. Chandra doesn't need to attack this one as it begins to crash and convulse on the ground. Near its abdomen, a glowing shape can be seen just below its scales, and just then, an explosion erupted through the monster's belly. The human-sized hole revealed Liliana Vess, covered in worm viscus and wearing the chain veil, pulsing with pure power and energy. As the worm collapses and dies, Liliana follows suit, falling unconscious. Everyone's still alive, at least for the time being. Gideon handles another worm, killing it with his Surreal and superb reflexes. Jace suggests they retreat back to Kaladesh so they can heal and regroup, yet Gideon's confident they can handle this. Nissa runs over to heal Liliana, but something stops her. A feeling. This plane, Amonkhet. The dead are cursed to walk in undeath. As the worm, who now had a Liliana-shaped hole in its chest, reeled up, undead and angry. Gideon is taken aback by this. It looked as if they needed to kill these bugs twice if they hoped to win. Unfortunately, Jace and Chandra were pinned down protecting Liliana, and Nissa was snatched by one of the undead worms and trapped in its coil, being squeezed. Gideon couldn't protect everyone at once. It looked as if he'd lose another friend thanks to his actions. But as he's pulled by both choices, a dazzling light comes shooting across the sky like a comet. But this light took the shape of an arrow. It pierces the undead worm and melts its flesh in holy fire. The other worms notice this power and begin to retreat, leaving Nissa unconscious, but they were cut off by a massive figure with the head of a jackal, gold and beautiful. This woman, who or whatever it was, moved with such speed that Gideon could hardly track her movements. She wielded a 2-pronged staff which she used to skewer a worm, killing it instantly, as another arrow from the unseen archer obliterates the other. Stunned by this event, Gideon makes eye contact with this being, her presence washing over him, a feeling he had once before on Theros. Then she nods and disappears. He collapses alongside his unconscious friends. There are gods on Amonkhet. After they were all safe thanks to these gods, Gideon helps his friends back to consciousness, trying in vain to explain what had just happened. No one seemed eager to believe him, and each had a different plan for what to do next, but Gideon was clear. They needed to press on. How can a world, supposedly ruled by the evil Nicol Bolas, have gods of such righteousness? How can they serve him while also saving their lives? These were questions in need of answers, as they continued their march to the Horns. As they pass the final dune, they see it, a massive city near the base of the Horns. Monuments, homes, lush plant life, people, things that seemed foreign on this harsh plane. Jace notices there's a magical essence around the city, a force that caused birds to fly around it rather than over the city. Such a shelter in the center of a swirling desert of death. All they could do is forge a path forward in search of answers. And there you go guys, our first look lore-wise at the plane of Amonkhet. Obviously we learned a lot, but there's still so much more to find out. It seems the plane itself is cursed with undeath. Everything that dies comes back as a zombie, Walking Dead style. Is this a curse of Nicol Bolas' making? If this world is created by the Dragon Planeswalker, why make these gods who would help his opposition from certain death? How can gods, such righteous beings, work under the evil guise of Bolas? And why is this city seemingly shielded from the horrors outside? Does Bolas protect them in order to gain their loyalty? So many questions to be answered, and such an exciting way to start Amonkhet. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the Aether Hub here on YouTube, make sure you give this video a like, share it with friends, and of course subscribe for more awesome MTG content. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here on the Aether Hub.